Hey, welcome back to Spooky Bricks. So in this video I'm going to be discussing my build of the Headless Horseman bridge of Sleepy Hollow. So this is of course depicting the climactic scene towards the end of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, where Ichabod Crane is trying to desperately escape from the Headless Horseman by crossing the Sleepy Hollow Bridge. Now, if you've seen the old Disney movie or the Tim Burton movie, you might be wondering why this isn't a covered bridge. Well, that was actually just a Disney invention. The original bridge that provided the inspiration for the bridge in the story wasn't a covered bridge. It was just a basic minimal wooden bridge, and that's what I based this build off of. So of course that original bridge is long gone, and the bridge that's there now is just a very basic asphalt overpass, and you could easily just drive right over it and not even realize that you're on a bridge at all, but there is a sign on the location letting you know what used to be there. However, about a quarter of a mile upstream in the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, there is a small wooden bridge that is known as the Headless Horseman Bridge, and although it's not really a replica of the original bridge, it does give you a good idea of what it might have been like. It's surrounded by trees, and it's far enough from the main road that it gets pretty peaceful and serene. And this bridge also helped inspire the look of my build. The water under the bridge is made up of trans-clear tiles, and I added some curved lines of trans-clear slope cheese wedge pieces to indicate the look of the current in the water. Underneath the trans-clear tiles, I used plates that go from reddish brown to dark brown to black and then back again to help give the illusion of changes in depth. And various shapes of gray tiles act as some random rocks in the creek. Now, of course, I had to raise up the terrain on either side of the stream so that the bridge would be a good height above the water. I used a variety of colors to imply the transition from wet mud to dirt to grass. And of course, I topped it all off with some various plant pieces and some fall leaves. So instead of continuing the terrain down the sides, I thought it would be an interesting look to have it as sort of a X-ray cutout of the terrain, showing all kinds of roots or whatever other spooky things might be lurking below the surface. The brown and black whip pieces work great as twisting gnarled tree roots. The bridge is supported by foundations of various shaped rocks. I recreated the look of them with all kinds of slopes, tiles, and textured bricks in shades of gray and dark tan. I wanted the foundation to be wider at the base and more narrow at the top, so I angled the sides with some hinge pieces, and on the front I put larger pieces at the bottom and smaller pieces towards the top. For the bridge itself, I used tiles in medium nougat, dark tan, and dark orange. Usually wood in LEGO is portrayed in shades of brown, but because I used so much brown in the terrain, I wanted to make sure that it didn't blend in with the wood of the bridge. I used tiles with the wood texturing on them. They're mostly the printed pieces, but a few are stickered. I wanted the bridge to have sort of an old rickety look to it. So I used some hinge pieces with the wood tiles to get them at various angles, and that creates all kinds of gaps and holes in the bridge. This just adds to the spooky creepiness of the whole scene and helps make the bridge look that much more ominous. I made the trees on either side of the bridge black with some touches of dark brown to create the look of a dark, creepy forest surrounding Ichabod. In fact, some of the branches on the larger trees stretch out like a clawed hand, almost reaching out for Ichabod. So it gives the impression that it's not just the Headless Horseman out to get Ichabod, but the entire forest itself. So I didn't want the trees to just be straight up and down, so I angled them both inward towards the bridge, and I think that gives it a much more visually interesting look. The trees in my previous videos were mostly made of Technic connectors, however for these I used a much wider range of pieces. I used a lot of studs not on top techniques, so the tree trunks are built up much thicker and chunkier. I experimented with using some of the flipper pieces to act as leaves, just to change it up a little and add a bit of a different texture. The tree trunks are also wrapped in some black rope, just to give it more of a knotted, gnarled, organic kind of look. So let's move on to the individual figures. For the horseman's body, I used the Blackbeard figure from the Pirates of the Caribbean line, and his flaming pumpkin head is from a Marvel Green Goblin set. Ichabod's torso is Ron Weasley's torso from a Harry Potter Goblet of Fire set, and the hat and hair combo was taken from a Pirate Girl minifigure. So I first visited Sleepy Hollow in October of 2021, and when I got back home I got inspired to make my own LEGO Headless Horseman. And if I make the Headless Horseman, well then of course I have to make the bridge too. And then a year later I came back and I brought the whole thing with me. So that is it for this video, and keep an eye out for the next video where I will be back with another spooky Sleepy Hollow build.
All the stories of ghosts and goblins that he had heard in the afternoon now came crowding upon his recollection. The night grew darker and darker. The stars seemed to sink deeper in the sky, and driving clouds occasionally hid them from his sight. He had never felt so lonely and dismal. He was, moreover, approaching the very place where many of the scenes of the ghost stories had been laid. In the dark shadow of the grove, he beheld something huge, misshapen and towering. It stirred not, but seemed gathered up by the gloom, like some gigantic monster ready to spring upon the traveler. Summoning up therefore a show of courage, he demanded in stammering accents, Who are you? He received no reply. Once more he cudgeled the sides of the inflexible gunpowder, and shutting his eyes, broke forth with involuntary fervor into a psalm tune. Just then the shadowy object of alarm put itself in motion with a scramble and a bound, stood at once in the middle of the road. Though the night was dark and dismal, yet the form of the unknown might now in some degree be ascertained. He appeared to be a horseman of large dimensions, and mounted on a black horse of powerful frame. There was something in the moody and dogged silence of this pretentious companion that was mysterious and appalling. It was soon fearfully accounted for. On mounting a rising ground which brought the figure of his fellow traveler in relief against the sky, gigantic in height and muffled in a cloak, Ichabod was horror-struck on perceiving that he was headless. His terror rose to desperation. He rained a shower of kicks and blows upon gunpowder, hoping by sudden movement to give his companion the slip. But the spectre started full jump with him. Away then they dashed through the thick and thin, stones flying, sparks flashing at every bound. This road leads to a sandy hollow shaded by trees for about 1/4 of a mile, where it crosses the famous bridge of the goblin story. And just beyond swells the green knoll on which stands the whitewashed church. The girths of the saddle gave way, and he felt it slipping under him. The saddle fell to the earth, and he heard it trampled underfoot by his pursuer. For a moment, the terror of Hans Van Ripper's wrath passed across his mind, for it was his Sunday saddle, but this was no time for petty fears. An opening in the trees now cheered him with the hopes that the church bridge was at hand. He recollected the place where Brom Bones' ghostly competitor has disappeared. "If I can but reach that bridge," thought Ichabod, "I am safe." Another convulsive kick in the ribs, and old Gunpowder sprang upon the bridge. He thundered over the resounding planks. He gained the opposite side, and now Ichabod cast a look behind to see if his pursuer should vanish according to rule in a flash of fire and brimstone. He saw the goblin rising in his stirrups, and in the very act of hurling his head at him. Ichabod endeavored to dodge the horrible missile, but too late. It encountered his cranium with a tremendous crash. He was tumbled headlong into the dust, and Gunpowder, the black steed, and the goblin rider all passed by like a whirlwind.